Welcome to Running in the 70s, where we interview, meet, and get to know athletes of all kind who were running in the 70s. I'm your host, Matthew Kleinowski. Today on the podcast, we're back in Western Pennsylvania with someone who started running in the 70s, but has been involved in the sport in so many ways, as an official, as a coach, and as the owner and provider of timing services for races. So welcome today on the podcast, Dave Mapes. Hi, Dave.
Hi, Matt. Thank you for having me.
Dave, let's talk about your origin story as a runner. When is the first time you started running?
February 1979, walking through uptown Somerset, I saw that I had developed a pot belly. And as a health and phys ed teacher at age 29, I went, nah, that's not going to work. The Blue Cross Blue Shield Human Race 10K was being advertised to be held at the old Richland Mall in March. And so this was the first weekend of February, and the movie Rocky was on TV, and the steps were my motivation. And I started running at the school night. I started running Monday. I used the Cooper plan, the 12-minute plan to run, because there was a quarter mile around the school. And I knew I could go out the door and go over and back for 12 minutes, as many as I could. And then I try to improve every day. Then I worked to the point where I would catch a ride with a teacher going home from school, and I'd run back to the school. In really 5 weeks, I went from nothing to a 10K.
Let's go back even further. Were you ever a competitive athlete?
I was a jumper at Somerset High School. I did the long, triple, and high jump. I continued at Westchester State College and did long and triple jump there for 4 years. Each of my last meets in all 4 years was my best jump of each season.
What were your accomplishments through that career as a jumper that are most fond to you now?
I went to states twice in the triple jump from Somerset and jumped in Beaver Stadium at the time. That's where the state track meet was held. My freshman year, between the preliminaries and the finals of the triple jump, they had a freshman meet for the Mid-Atlantic Conference, which was Temple, St. Joe's, LaSalle, Ryder. I changed my technique between the preliminaries and the finals, jumped 2 feet further, and won a gold medal.
Wow. So, what kind of coaching did you have in high school and college?
My high school coach was a former Somerset athlete who competed in college. College level, none. They coached the runners. All the field event people were on their own.
Wow.
You got yourself in shape. And really, we couldn't jump. We had an indoor season, but we didn't have the facility to jump indoors.
Let's go back to 1979. How did that first race go for you?
It was interesting because you didn't know anybody. You didn't know who runners were. It was a winter run. There was snow on the ground. It was a double loop that went from the mall back by the Vo-Tech school, back up past UPJ, and you did it twice. I can just remember DC Noakes lighting up the halls, like getting all excited about doing this run. And I'm watching all these people run, and I didn't stretch or anything. I'm sitting there resting because I know I have 6 miles in front of me. I think that really motivated me to stay after it. Most of the races then were long 10Ks. The 5K didn't exist. And so I was traveling, looking for races to do.
Wow. So you went not only just to run, but you became a racer immediately. How did that fit into getting rid of the pot belly and also fitting into that you hadn't competed since college?
It was just a change. I think you befriended people. I ran a 40:09 10K, and I was really considered a heavyweight runner because my legs are most of my body weight from jumping. But I don't know if I want to run faster because then I have to train more. And I went to the Just Run for Fitness.
Let me ask you what it was like. What do you remember besides the excitement at DC Noakes? What was the size of the field, timing, awards, entry
Well,
costs? What was it like at the end of the 70s there for you?
the field seemed to always be the same people. I never won an award, not an age group award or anything. It was just the personal satisfaction of trying to be consistent time wise. As far as timing, it was handheld. And that's really how I got started. I didn't have a printer stopwatch at the time, and it was just a tick sheet and writing numbers down and writing times down as fast as you could. The fields, because of the distance, I don't think they were overly large, but it was the same faces.
What happened then? So, 1979, February, you ran your first race and you started immediately searching out races
Right.
regionally. How far afield did you go for racing?
I went into Pittsburgh. I can remember driving to Plum to do a race in there because there weren't that many local races. The race at Forest Hills up in Stedman at the high school. Every time I go up 219, I look at that long hill to the left and remember running from the school out to 219 and then coming up the hill to the dam.
What about paying for it? You remember run fees?
Yeah, $10 or $15.
When did that change? I will get into all your other activities. Do you remember about when it changed when awards came? The first time you saw electronic timing?
Well, probably in the 80s. When I started my first race at Shanksville was in the 80s in a March event. I figured out how to time there. And
What motivated you to get involved in the sport, though?
just to do it, I like to organize things, and it raised money for a specific event at Shanksville. The entry fee had to cover insurance, awards, refreshments, because you didn't think about asking people for donations for refreshments, and didn't know much about sponsorship. I really, all through my career, I really struggled to get sponsorship for things. So you usually had to try and cover all your costs through the entry fee.
What was the theme or benefit of that first race that you set up?
It benefited the sophomore class at the school. And then as that progressed, they became the manpower for the event. And we changed. I was always trying to come up with a gimmick to get people to come. I can remember reading in Runner's World about an apple pie race out in the Midwest where they, baked hot apple pies, and those were the age group awards. Then with the sophomore class, you'd ask each class member to donate 2 apple pies. When it was awards time, it was like kids in a candy store, which is the biggest or the best looking apple pie. You'd somebody bring a cherry pie, and you try and smuggle the best looking apple pie to a friend that traveled 80 miles to come to the race.
You started that race, and how long did it continue?
It went over 30 years. I stopped it before I retired. It became hard to get the kids to want to do it. We stopped doing the event before I retired.
Okay, from beginning to end, what were the most significant changes that you saw of racing at that point?
Just the differences in the age groups. You didn't have a new influx of blood, and everybody was getting older. That when you look at age groups now, you could do a 29 and under age group around here in some of the races because the youth, especially high school runners, they only run in season. There aren't too many around here that run off season for conditioning.
Let's talk about your other involvements from coaching, timing, and officiating. How did you get into those?
Officiating started because I had competed in high school and college. My first year of teaching in 72, I was one of the few track officials in Somerset County. I did 23 track meets in one spring, and you go into a track meet and you're the starter as the official. So you hope that everybody else is doing their job, especially in field events. I basically covered all of Somerset County in the early years. When I would go to Myersdale, I would make sure I took a hammer with me to pound the blocks in because they were all cinder tracks. You know, there wasn't an all-weather track.
Let's talk about certification then. So 1972, what was the process for you to become certified? Was that a PIAA?
PIAA, and you took a written test. There was no skill involved. You had to get 85 questions right out of 100 on a test. And actually, I provided my own shells for the starting gun at races. Here at the end of my career, it was $1 a shell for a 32 blank at $50 a box, and you're getting paid $45 to officiate. It didn't work. You had to ask the schools, please provide the shells. They went away from the shell and went to the electronic gun the last couple years. And you tried to sell the schools on buying the gun because in the long run, they'd save money. I didn't have to buy the gun. I could show up and use their gun.
What about these officials that you worked with, the people that came to the track meet? How many of them had passed the test, and how many interested people?
None. As the starter, I was the only PIAA official. The rest of the timers were faculty members or some of the coaches, the field event people. Some of them might have even been students. And it wasn't too bad back in the beginning. It was towards the end of my career when they implemented all the uniform rules, where everybody had to look the same. The shot putter just couldn't be there in a t-shirt that said the name of the school. As the starter, you were the clerk, of course, too, you would catch the jewelry on the track. But in the field events, sometimes they had a necklace on or a bracelet, and then you had to deal with the aftermath of somebody pointing it out, and now you've got to try and straighten out the problem.
Any memories of kind of crazy stories that you had to deal with?
Oh, I can still remember Everett High School at Wimber, and Wimber's track was new at the time, and it was up on top of the hill. The first time I went to a track meet there, I went, there can't be a facility here because you're driving away from the school and driving to the top of an old strip mine. And I had a girl with a multicolored bra undergarment. And at the time, the rule said single solid color. You had to do a disqualification. And I can remember the Everett coach saying, I will never come back. And I said, I didn't write the rule, but I have to enforce the rule.
How far afield did you get officiating besides local meets?
I did a couple college meets at Frostburg because there just weren't a lot of collegiate level officials. So my chapter actually helped out there towards the end of my career. But I pretty much stayed in Somerset County. I did do Central Cambria, Westmont, Richland, places that you could get to when you get out of school at 3 o'clock and you had to be somewhere at 4. I would travel there because we had less than 10 officials at the end of my retirement. After I left, a bunch of others retired too. There wasn't new blood. The PIAA still now makes a call when they're doing their championships. They're going to become, I didn't do it for the money. It was always extra cash, but I just love to be around the sport.
I officiated. I used to attend the PIAA state meet. I went as an athlete, and then after I graduated, I'd go. And I had a couple friends who were working there. I think they were officials, so I managed to get that. I set hurdles for the state final. I never took a test.
Yeah.
I was thinking, wow, kind of risky. I'm sure there were a lot of mistakes made, but again, people in charge have to check all that.
Yeah. I did do the state meet as a triple jump official many years before children. I did a lot of things before I started a family because I got married later in life. And
were you starting and officiating track meets in the mid-70s?
Yes.
Did you do any Richland meets?
Probably not back that far.
I went to Richland. I competed against Somerset at bigger meets, some of our conference meets and championship meets. So we may have been at the same place at the same time.
Yeah, that's possible. I recognize your name, but not the face. That's the thing with timing all these people. They can remember Dave at the finish line, and then I'm putting tags on boards, and then unless I catch the number, I don't know the people.
You had more than that, though. It's a long career as an official. You worked at the state championship meet and loved the sport. You got involved other ways. Let's talk about coaching. You had experience as a field man, as a jumper. How did you learn to coach the other areas of your team?
Observation and just friendship with other head coaches. Through officiating, you got to see what head coaches did, how they had rapport with their kids. In 2001, Shade offered Shanksville the opportunity to be a co-op sport in track and field. They asked me to be the assistant coach, and I was an assistant for 2 years, and then I was the head coach for 10 years.
What happened in that span and change of the sport? Anything significant?
Shade had a cinder track, and the kids, my first year of coaching, had never had a home track meet because no one would line the track. It's nice when you show up at an all-weather track and it's already done for you. So I can remember I lined the track by hand by myself.
How many lanes at a time?
The track was only big enough for 4 lanes. I would measure the width on the straightaways, pull string, put a nail in. And it was lime at the time. They didn't have paint. So you're picking up 50-pound bags of lime and putting them in a striper, walk down the line, and then move everything and do it again. And for the curves, we created an aluminum device that I could drag, and it would etch in the track. And then you hoped your lines would hook up, block the curve, and hope that your lines would meet. You'd use the inside lane as your straight edge and hope that it would work. All the throws and the track. Then you had to measure where all the lines went. When I had aerosol paint then at the time, you could paint your hurdle marks different colors and do all that. But I can remember one year did the track, and then we had a snowstorm, and it left a trace. There was enough to see it, and you could redo it on Monday before the track meet on Tuesday. Then, being coached there so long, I went, can we get all weather. Can we do something? We had the township, when they were paving streets in shade, brought the machine in and blacktopped the track. Then it was macadam. It still didn't have rubber on it, but it was macadam, and they had a professional company line the macadam, but that helped us step up a little bit more. And then they did put rubber down but
Yeah.
it was still only a 4-lane facility.
Wow. And what about your coaching successes? What's memorable? Not necessarily performance, but the kids. What are some of your best
Well,
memories of coaching?
just the friendship, especially the earlier kids. I brought a change to the coaching philosophy at the school. Within the first 2 years, we had a 4x1 relay team that made states, and it had 2 girls from Shade and 2 girls from Shanksville. And that we talk about a co-op, you couldn't do anything better than that. The numbers grew now. The numbers are really small now, but I got to coach my daughters. Although I lived in Somerset, they went to school in Shanksville just because of a strike that went on in Somerset. And they could go to school where my wife and I were working. Both girls excelled in track and field.
The timing, what was the span of the race timing when did you start?
Right.
And what was it like? How did you learn that, and what changed over time in that technology?
I think I just learned by doing it. It was strictly clipboard. I developed my own system, and I still use that system now with pool. It's funny when you're reaching for a pool tag and people want to shake your hand. I'm like, I just want the tag. Still, it's a manual system. I've done 1,000 people manually by pulling the tag and numbering the tags and putting a time on the tag and posting them on a board. My Lawan boards are still original from back in the 80s. They're showing a lot of splinters now and everything, but that's part masking tape turned out so they stick on the sticky side. Index cards. Sometimes I'll type them up for a bigger race so it looks a little more formal, what the age groups are. But just the local races started to start, like the Maple Festival, and Confluence has a Pumpkin Fest. And just from friendships, my ability to go to other towns and do races grew. I had brothers that helped me. I would depend upon help because it grew from a couple to my max. I think I was between 70 and 80 races in a year.
Wow.
When you think about how many weekends there are, that's Saturday and Sunday. We did 5 races in 2 days one year because we could do AM. This Saturday, I have an AM race and a PM race. Just by word of mouth, it grew. And I was going into Pittsburgh, doing races. I did a race in Ohio, done races in Morgantown, but I'm budget friendly. My friend John Swagger from the Indiana Roadrunners group, I do their races up there, 4 races in their series. So just by word of mouth.
You said you're budget friendly and a bit lower tech than some of the alternative ways of doing this.
For
Yeah.
sure.
So do you have intermediate timing at all, or just finish line?
Just finish line.
So the runners will wear their own watches and get their own splits, and you provide the official time at the end.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
What's the process of that? Since you don't have to go out and set up generators and intermediate and hand out chips and go retrieve equipment, what's your setup and breakdown time for a race?
I can set up in 15 minutes by myself. I would always be at a race site an hour before. And now it's maybe 30 to 45 minutes because I know I can set a shoot up with my eyes closed if I had to. People that know me will see me doing it, and sometimes they'll offer to help. But Just a basic chute. Used to set the clock up overhead. Now it's either on a 8 or a 6-foot ladder or a little portable stand to the side. But I collect the tags, number them by place, put a time on, and then they go on a strip of tape on a board by age group. My thing is, you can see if you're not in the top 3 and you've had your refreshments, you can leave the site, or you can have to stay for awards.
Are you getting runners at these races who are using the electronic and technology races and
Yeah, they do.
shoe chips and things like that? So when they come here, how familiar are they with the idea that they're going to get a pull tag off their number, where other races?
They're okay. Now, if you get a new person, very new, some people don't wear their tag because they didn't know they had to, or they take the tearaway off thinking you didn't need it because they assume it's a chip race.
So what happens when they get?
Well, you put a blank tag in, and then you hope they come and identify themselves. Because if they wore the front, if they did wear the number, we can write the number on the tag. And then if they want to come and see how they did in their age group, and they say, I'm not here, I'm going to say, was this you? Was that your race number? And then we go from there.
Okay, let's talk about the reality of doing this. Nobody can control the weather.
No.
Races go, rain or shine.
For instance, 2 weeks ago, a thunderstorm came in after the race started. And it was a 3-loop race at a community college here in Somerset. There were only 13 people at the race. She was like lamenting that it was a failure because she only had 13. And I just think that the size of the crowd's gone down because people don't want to repeat the loops. But people came around. She said, what do we do? And I said, races have to go on. So when they came around the first time, we said, you're on your own. If you want to drop out, fine. I had a time for 1 lap or whatever they wanted to do.
Wow.
So there were only 2 runners in the field of 13, 1 male and 1 female.
They completed it.
The female did all 3 laps. And it stormed, it was really bad. The fellow who I had as a student in school, who's in his 60s now, did 2 laps. The walkers, the first walker that came around, her comment was, what about the awards? She was only concerned about the awards. If I don't keep going. So she did a 2nd lap. 1 fella did all 3 laps, and all the rest did 1 lap.
Wow.
That was probably the worst weather. I use a handheld stopwatch that prints, a Seiko watch that prints. Well, if the paper gets wet, it's bad news. And
So
that's the thing.
Yeah. How does that work? You've got a watch, and every time you punch it,
You click it, prints the time.
Excellent. Cool.
So the race I have Saturday night, they'll have 3 volunteers to help me. The one woman works at IUP in the business office. She's helped me now numerous times when I go that way to do races. She'll time, and the other 2 will pull the tags. So all I have to do is take a spindle with some tags, and I can go and number them, put the time on, put them on the board. Sometimes you get into a nice rhythm where you get 10 to 15 tags. And then when you get back, you have that many more again. Now, we've had big races where you have 100 tags on a spindle, when it's a big race with 800 to 1,000. The races with 1,000 were here in Somerset. And a lot of the people were walkers, which gives you a bigger gap. Where a 5K and a 10K, it gives you time to work. When it's 1,000 people and it's a 5K, it's boom. In Cannonsburg, one year, we did 2 finish lines. We did a male and a female, just for ease of manipulating the tags.
You live in an area of the country, in Western Pennsylvania, that has, because of industrial, certainly where I came from, Johnstown, the steel mill's closed. The town's shrinking, and it continues to shrink. So it is a smaller thing. Some of the races aren't gigantic. What happens in the future? You've gone through professional retirement, coaching retirement, right?
And John says, when you're done, we're done. With timing, I'm looking at 2 years, I'll be 75. I'm 73 now. My wife, she's saying, when you need to add this to your list of when do you stop?
What's going to happen with Dave Mapes' timing? Do you want it to continue? Is there a need for it? Is there a future plan?
My need is just helping the smaller events out. I did a race a couple weeks ago. It was 7:15 in the morning in the Jimmy Stewart Airport runway, on the runway. Okay. The timing service they had the first 2 years charged them basically what I charge for a race. This year they said it's $400. She had less than 100 people. She went, I can't, she's not going to make any money for her cause. And so my friend John in Indiana said, try and see if Dave's available. On a week's notice, I was able to help her out.
And that's
Indiana, the Jimmy Stewart Airport. Yeah.
Right.
And what's funny there, a fella flew in from one of the Carolinas and walked in the race and left before I did. He got back in his plane and headed back. And I'm like, what time did he leave for a 7:15 race from the Carolinas? And he was as big as the plane. It was a single prop, and he was a big guy.
It's great. I think a lot of people that were competing in before there was electronic timing and then seeing the changeover may not be aware, and people that haven't been racing anymore aren't aware that there's a lot of these small races, and certainly the bigger races, and people that are paying $75, $90 entry fee would probably like to have more of these opportunities where affordable races and the focus isn't on the highest elite athletes in the race. It's interesting to find out about this. What do you think will happen? Who will pick it up in 2 years?
I don't think anybody. I don't think it'll happen. No one wants to put the time.
And what's next for you? Okay, 70, you've had a very long career involved in the sport with kids as a teacher, coach, official. Yeah. And what's your life focus now?
I have 4 grandchildren. And 2 of them are downstairs right now, a 4-year-old and 14-month-old brothers. We had a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old yesterday. 2 of them are starting school in the fall, 1 kindergarten, 1 pre-K. But my wife's still an active teacher for at least 2 more years. And in October of last year, I started on a book on the history of Somerset High School football.
Oh, yeah.
And I've spent over 1,000 hours since then. It's pretty much wrapped up now. The season just started this week, and the first game's in 2 weeks. I'm going to wait and include 2023, so it will be the 107-year history of Somerset football. All numbers. It's all statistics, not storytelling. That's been my focus.
It's interesting, and on behalf of everybody in any sport, it's great to be able to say thanks for what you've done for keeping sports alive as a volunteer, a barely paid official, a coach, and a timer standing in the rain twice a day, 7:15 in the morning, so that other people can
Yeah.
enjoy fitness and sports. It's a really nice legacy you put together.
Well, thank you, Matt.
And it's interesting to hear this snapshot. Fascinating to see what's become in small town America to keep this thing alive. Your story is really interesting because you're involved in the sport so many ways and as this long longevity. So I appreciate your time.
Okay, Matt. Thank you.
Thanks for your time, Dave.
Thanks, Matt. Thank you.